Subscribe, like, and comment if you believe silence is humanity's most dangerous weapon. The chamber of the Galactic Senate shimmered with artificial starlight as thousands of delegates gathered to mock the latest rumor spreading through the network: a Terran warship crossing restricted space. The laughter was unified, ringing through the marble of the Senate spire like the sneer of an empire convinced of its immortality. To them, humanity was an afterthought, a relic of old wars and crude instincts. Their fleets numbered in the thousands, their empires stretched across nebulae, and they viewed Earth's people as the ghosts of a forgotten conflict, too primitive, too disciplined, too quiet to matter. The representative from the Thalcor Dominion stood tall and proud, his crystalline skin refracting the light as he addressed the assembly. He ridiculed the very idea that a human vessel could challenge the Senate's authority. "A dreadnought?" he sneered. "Perhaps a cargo hulk refitted with dreams." The room erupted again in cruel laughter, echoed by the Council of Systems, by the bureaucrats who had never fought a war in 1,000 years. They remembered humanity's history of fire, yet dismissed it as myth, because myths can't return fire. At the far edge of the hall, the human envoy sat motionless. Ambassador Riasalis, draped in the muted blue of the Terran Union, had not spoken a word through the session. Her face was unreadable as holographic projections displayed the incoming sensor logs, a solitary signature drifting towards Senate territory. The Council dismissed it as a malfunction. One delegate smirked. "Perhaps humans forgot how to navigate without starting a war." The laughter came again, loud enough to drown reason. Humanity had learned long ago that the loudest rooms are usually the weakest. Their silence wasn't ignorance, it was calculation. When humanity entered the galactic fold, they didn't compete with superweapons or quantum navies. They offered diplomacy, trade, peace. Yet each offer was received with suspicion, each act of restraint labeled as cowardice. The Senate called it humility, humans called it patience. For centuries, they had tolerated the insults, endured being excluded from strategic councils, and watched other species grow complacent behind their own arrogance. They had seen peace twisted into policy, defense into decoration. As the Senate debated sanctions and mock punishments for Terran intrusion, the human envoy finally stood. The motion sensors adjusted automatically, amplifying her soft voice across the vast chamber. "You mistake silence for surrender," she said evenly, her tone calm yet unshakable. No one responded at first. Then came a ripple of amusement, followed by roars of laughter so loud that it seemed the stars themselves might echo it. "A single Terran ship will challenge the Armada?" mocked a Valran senator. "Perhaps they plan to bore us into submission." Ria's eyes didn't waver. "You've spent 10,000 years building walls of comfort," she said. "We spent 10,000 remembering what happens when comfort fails." The chamber fell quiet for a moment, just long enough for discomfort to take root, before a delegate dismissed her with a lazy wave. The Senate declared the meeting adjourned, ordering the Armada to intercept and escort the Terran relic back to human space for questioning. As the assembly dispersed, Admiral Kethran, commander of the Armada, lingered in amusement. "One ship against 1,000, he muttered. "A fitting metaphor for Terran arrogance." He didn't realize the irony of his words. For humans, arrogance wasn't defiance, it was confidence earned through extinction's shadow. Every war they'd fought, they'd survived. Every mistake they'd learned. Their silence wasn't fear, it was focus. When the Senate's lights dimmed and the delegates returned to their palaces of marble and chrome, a single data stream flickered through the network. The retribution signal vanished from every Senate scanner simultaneously, no trace, no trail. To the politicians, it was just human incompetence. To those who had studied history, it was something far worse. The last time humanity went dark, the stars themselves changed color. No one in the Senate would admit it aloud, but deep in the recesses of their ancestral instincts, a memory stirred, a reminder of what the old chronicles once said about the Terrans. When they are quiet, it's already too late. Subscribe, like, and comment if you believe some powers are meant to sleep, until the universe forgets why they shouldn't. Deep beneath the silence of Sol's orbit drifted a shape older than memory, vast as a mountain and quiet as a prayer, the Terran Dreadnought Retribution. For 2 centuries it had hung motionless, powered down yet preserved, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. Every human generation had been taught one law about it: never wake the ship unless there is no other choice. Today, that law had been broken. Automated locks disengaged one by one. Quantum forges reignited with a resonance that shook the void itself. Within its armored heart, systems long sealed behind layers of forgotten code stirred awake. The Retribution was no ordinary vessel, it was the final evolution of human warcraft, designed not for conquest but remembrance. Its existence was humanity's quietest secret, an unspoken covenant between peace and the memory of ruin. While the galaxy had moved on to ornamental fleets and ceremonial militaries, humanity had kept one truth alive: peace only endures when you remember what breaking it costs. Captain Elias Ward stepped onto the command deck as the first power conduit's pulse blew. His uniform bore no rank insignia, only the symbol of the old fleet, a circle split by a single diagonal line. He'd been revived from cryostasis with orders that were terrifying in their simplicity: demonstrate deterrence. No preamble, no politics. Humanity's diplomats had been mocked long enough. It was time to remind the stars that silence does not mean weakness. Ward's crew was handpicked, descendants of officers who once commanded the fleets of the Solar Defense Initiative. Every one of them carried the genetic code required to access the ship's neural interface. As the systems synchronized, they felt the Retribution's mind awaken, a vast, emotionless intelligence known only as Memoria. It held the data of every major battle humanity had ever fought, every tactic refined across centuries of survival. It did not speak, did not reason, it executed with precision so complete it bordered on divine. The Senate had forbidden such constructs long ago. Their laws outlawed autonomous strategy systems after a minor incident erased the moon. But humans had never disarmed, they had only gone quiet. Every advance, every restraint, every treaty signed by Earth's ambassadors had been accompanied by one unspoken promise: we remember everything. The other species saw patience, humans saw preparation. Ward watched as weapon bays cycled open, revealing armaments so advanced their designs were theoretical even to modern science. The main cannon array folded into alignment, operating through gravitational compression rather than combustion. Each shot could twist light into a weapon. The armor plating shimmered as microgravitic fields recalibrated, creating a defensive barrier dense enough to warp sensor readings. The Retribution could fight blind and still win. In the lower decks, engineers murmured a ritual phrase before sealing the reactor chamber: peace through memory of fire. It wasn't a slogan, it was history. Humanity had learned the hard way that survival wasn't achieved by outnumbering an enemy, but by outlasting their arrogance. The ship was not vengeance, it was the embodiment of discipline, forged for one message alone: do not mistake our calm for weakness. Outside, deep space sensors picked up the first distortion of Senate fleet movements. Thousands of ships converged toward the border world of Sarin 5. Ward didn't smile or speak, he simply nodded, and the Dreadnought's engines engaged. The space around it folded inward, light bending across its hull as it transitioned into what humans called deep slip. The move was instantaneous, no wake, no trace. The Retribution vanished from every known scanner in the galaxy. For the first time in generations, the Senate's most powerful systems detected something they couldn't explain. They called it a glitch. They didn't understand it was already too late. Humanity wasn't coming to fight for dominance or revenge. They were coming to demonstrate the single truth civilizations always forget: peace exists only because someone remembers how to end war. Subscribe, like, and comment if you believe true power doesn't shout, it arrives in silence. The Senate Armada assembled above Sarin 5 like a storm of light and arrogance. Over 1,000 ships glimmered in precise formation, their captains certain of an easy spectacle. This was not a battle, they told themselves, but a performance to remind the Terrans of their place. Admiral Cuthran, confident and composed, ordered the transmission to broadcast across the galaxy. Billions would watch humanity's humiliation. Sensors detected the arrival before any visual confirmation: space bending, not tearing, as if reality itself hesitated. Then the readings collapsed into static. In the center of the Armada, the void rippled, and a single human dreadnought emerged without a sound. No entry flare, no energy spike, no radiation signature. Just sudden existence. The ship dwarfed nearby cruisers, its armor swallowing starlight, its surface layered with shifting geometry that defied analysis. The Senate's communication officers scrambled to open channels. "Unidentified Terran vessel, stand down." No reply. Seconds later, a monotone voice cut through every frequency simultaneously. Transmission acknowledged. Demonstration commencing. The Admiral's amusement faded when his command board blinked warnings. Every targeting array across the fleet had gone offline. Guidance systems rebooted, power relays flickered, command links severed. It wasn't jamming, it was precision control, as though every ship had been rewritten from within. The Retribution hovered motionless, emitting no visible weapon signatures. Then space itself twisted. A pulse radiated outward, silent, invisible, unstoppable. 3 destroyers imploded into molten spirals before sensors registered the attack. Kethran barked for retaliation, but the fleet's fire failed to reach its target. Energy bolts curved, distorted, then dispersed like mist before the human vessel's gravitational shell. The aliens had developed energy shields. Humans had turned gravity into armor. The dreadnought fired once more, no beam, no missile, only a distortion that erased a formation of frigates. To outside observers, the ships appeared to melt away, erased from probability. The battle became chaos. Commanders shouted over collapsing channels. The Admiral's tactical AI crashed repeatedly, unable to predict human maneuvers because the Retribution didn't move according to known physics. It shifted like thought, appearing where strategy demanded, vanishing where response attempted to form. The fleet tried a coordinated counterattack, but every move was anticipated. Each hyperspatial jump point the Armada attempted destabilized seconds before activation. Human counter-FTL interference left them stranded. Panic spread as navigation systems failed one by one. The dreadnought was no longer firing continuously. It didn't need to. It acted with surgical restraint, striking only to dismantle structure, communication, and morale. Each pulse of energy was calculated for effect, not destruction. Humanity was not showing brutality. They were teaching precision. Kethran's composure fractured. He ordered full retreat, his voice trembling, but his flagship's drives refused ignition. Across the formation, thousands of vessels hung motionless, their systems enslaved by invisible command overrides. Then the voice returned, calm and absolute. "Now you understand why we prefer silence." The entire fleet froze as if the galaxy itself were listening. For 20 minutes, the Retribution held its position, every Senate ship drifting powerless around it. No explosions, no further attacks, just unbearable quiet. The dreadnought's sensors swept across them like judgment, recording every vessel's data signature. Finally, it released them. Systems flickered back online, propulsion restored. No one dared move. The humans had proven dominance without slaughter, control without chaos. It wasn't victory, it was demonstration. A single dreadnought had disarmed an empire in less than half an hour. When the Retribution turned away, its departure bent light into a spiral of silence. The void closed behind it, leaving the Senate Armada intact but hollow, stripped of pride and certainty. Kethran stared into the dark where it vanished, understanding too late that humanity hadn't returned to start a war. They had come to remind the galaxy what peace costs when it forgets who forged it. Subscribe, like, and comment if you believe mercy shown by power is the sharpest warning of all. The broadcast of the battle spread faster than light through the galactic network. Every species, every council, every citizen who had ever mocked humanity watched in disbelief. The Senate Armada, once the galaxy's ultimate symbol of dominance, drifted powerless, surrounded by the debris of its own arrogance. The laughter that once filled the Senate's chambers was replaced by silence, the kind that carries the weight of understanding too late. Admiral Kethran's flagship floated amid thousands of disabled ships, its once golden hull scarred by gravity burns. The fleet's status reports were identical: systems online, propulsion functional, weapons locked by an unknown override. The Dreadnought Retribution had stopped firing. It was hovering at the edge of the system, massive and motionless, as if watching them reconsider the meaning of strength. Kethran had seen fleets destroyed, rebellions crushed, worlds erased, but never had he seen an opponent that conquered without annihilation. That restraint frightened him more than any weapon ever could. Across the galaxy, the live feeds showed the truth the Senate had tried to bury for centuries. Humans were not relics. They were architects of restraint, creatures who had evolved beyond the need to prove what they were capable of. Commentators and commanders across the system spoke in disbelief, analyzing every frame, every pulse, every maneuver, and finding no weakness, no flaw. The conclusion was unavoidable. Humanity hadn't fallen behind, they had simply stopped showing what they could do. The Retribution began transmitting a single message on all channels. It wasn't a demand or declaration, only one line of calm, human voice. Judgment protocol initiated. The fleet panicked, expecting annihilation, but the protocol wasn't destruction. It was deactivation. Reactors shut down across the enemy armada one by one, leaving ships adrift but intact. Energy cores stabilized, safeties engaged, and weapons were rendered permanently inert. It was surgical and absolute. In minutes, the armada that represented the collective military pride of 200 species became silent metal drifting through the void. Boarding parties from the Dreadnought arrived without weapons. Human Marines wore unmarked armor, their visors reflecting only light, not identity. They didn't demand surrender. They simply restored atmosphere controls, repaired critical systems, and departed without a word. Every gesture was deliberate, discipline displayed through action. They weren't conquerors collecting trophies. They were messengers delivering an undeniable truth. The era of unchecked arrogance was over. Admiral Kethran, trembling and defeated, demanded to know why they had spared him. The holographic projection of the human envoy appeared before him, Rhea Salas, her calm expression unchanged since the Senate session. "We asked for respect," she said softly, "not submission. You mistook peace for weakness. You mistook silence for fear. We only reminded you what both truly mean." Her image faded, leaving him staring at his reflection in the cracked glass of his command console. When the Retribution withdrew, it didn't vanish into hyperspace. It folded out of existence entirely, leaving behind only gravitational residue that sensors couldn't categorize. The Armada remained stranded, awaiting rescue ships that would take weeks to arrive. In those quiet hours, officers who once spoke of human inferiority sat in stunned contemplation. They had been defeated by a single vessel that had shown more control than their entire civilization. Back on the Senate Capitol, the emergency assembly convened in panic. No speeches, no pride, just fear and disbelief. Entire factions demanded immediate peace accords, others sought to conceal what had happened. But the data feeds couldn't be erased. Billions had already seen humanity's demonstration. Across worlds, whispers turned to reverence. Children on distant colonies spoke the word, Terran, as if it meant unshakable certainty. The once ridiculed species had become the embodiment of inevitability. The galaxy had witnessed power tempered by discipline, dominance without cruelty. The Senate had expected destruction. Instead, they were shown mercy that humbled every empire in existence. The Retribution had left no ruins behind, only lessons. In the silence of space, those lessons echoed louder than any weapon could. Humanity had done what no species had dared. They ended a war before it began, not through annihilation, but through remembrance of what they could have done if they hadn't chosen restraint. Subscribe, like, and comment if you believe true peace is earned, not granted. The Galactic Senate reconvened under a silence thicker than any atmosphere. The great hall that once echoed with mockery now carried the hum of fear and awe. Delegates sat motionless, eyes fixed on the empty chair reserved for the human envoy. Across the chamber, displays replayed the battle reports, each line of data a reminder that power no longer belonged to those who spoke loudest. The arrogance that had bound the Senate together for millennia dissolved in a single moment of recognition. They had faced a civilization that had mastered restraint as thoroughly as it had mastered war. No one dared to call for vengeance. Every attempt at forming words felt futile in the shadow of what they had witnessed. Even Admiral Kethran, once the Senate's pride, refused to speak. His hands shook as he signed the report declaring total defeat, not through destruction but through surrender of spirit. When the motion was raised to rewrite the Galactic Charter, no one opposed it. The proposal was simple: recognize humanity as a senior species under interstellar law. The vote passed without debate. It wasn't a concession, it was self-preservation. On Earth, the Retribution returned to its silent orbit above the planet that birthed it. Captain Ward and his crew disembarked with no celebration, no speeches, no honors. They didn't need them. Humanity's message had been delivered without words. Peace is not a product of treaties but of memory. The ship entered stasis once again, its systems dimming until it resembled a drifting monument rather than a weapon. No one aboard considered it retirement, it was vigilance resting. Somewhere deep within its hull, the AI Memoria stored the logs of the battle, not as triumph, but as record, a chapter in the ongoing doctrine of restraint. Across alien worlds, schools began teaching Terran philosophy. Military academies analyzed the Retribution strategy, trying to understand how a single ship could control an entire fleet without mass destruction. What they failed to grasp was that the answer had nothing to do with technology. It was about intent. Humanity no longer fought to win, they acted to end. Every empire built on dominance now reevaluated its existence. Treaties rewritten, weapons decommissioned, and a quiet respect for the Terran Union spread across the stars. Some called it fear, others called it enlightenment. Humanity called it balance. The Senate dispatched new emissaries to Earth bearing gifts, apologies, and vows of eternal alliance. None were refused, but none were accepted as tribute either. The human response was brief and universal. Let memory be the price of arrogance. The message circulated through every system, encrypted in a way no one could alter or erase. It became the foundation of the new Galactic Code. For the first time in recorded history, war budgets declined. The galaxy had learned to be cautious not because of terror, but because of shame. Captain Ward retired to the Sol Council in silence. When asked why the Dreadnought hadn't finished the Armada, his answer was as precise as his command decisions. Because victory without mercy is just another form of failure. His words spread faster than any fleet could travel. Within months, colonies on the edge of known space began marking the date of the Armada's fall as the Day of Remembrance. The day humanity reminded the galaxy that fear isn't power, discipline is. As centuries passed, legends grew around the Retribution. Some claimed it was buried beneath the surface of Mars, others that it roamed interstellar space, invisible and waiting. But among humans, no one sought it. They didn't need to. It had already fulfilled its purpose. Humanity no longer needed to prove its strength, its silence had become its legacy. In the end, the galaxy did not bow to humanity because of what they could destroy. They bowed because humanity alone remembered why they shouldn't.